Welcome back to another episode of the Den Way Podcast. I got a cool guest on. Just meeting them, and hopefully you guys love this conversation. So I'm going to introduce my guest, Hollis Pierce. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Lucas. Thank you for having me here.
No problem, man. I'm looking forward to this conversation, like I said, and it's not a lot of times that I get to meet somebody with muscular dystrophy uh, in my adult life. When I was growing up, I went to muscular dystrophy camps and NBA camps and things like that, and so I was always around people with muscular dystrophy. But in my adult life, I don't think I meet a lot of people with muscular dystrophy. So, uh, well, by the way, where are you from? Before we get into everything.
I live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, okay, Canadian. Okay, I got you. I like
I'm
that
a
a lot.
Canadian, proud Canadian, absolutely.
So, I just started talking about NBA camp and everything like that. How was the community there in Canada with muscular dystrophy?
It's great. As you say, I also knew quite a bit more people with muscular dystrophy as kids.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Easter Seals camps, where we had a number of. It was just a massive disabled community there, and
Mm-hmm.
from that camp I grew, built many friendships that still last today.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, muscular dystrophy is a disability that has many different forms,
Yeah.
and the most common often has a shorter lifespan. So I've lost a few friends along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
those that I still have, are very dear to me that I do a number of events with and activities with on a regular basis still.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely relate on growing up through the years and with the different forms. Some of your friends that you had and you formed relationships with pass away. So like we go to camp and have fun that week, and then the next year you find out that your buddy passed away during that year and they won't be back. And it was a sad thing, and so I definitely understand that. It was not my favorite thing about this life is how many friends you lose through this disease. But I don't know. I don't know. It's sad because now I'm starting to think about some of my friends and things now. Just thinking about it, and it's tough. Um, so do you have a best friend like off your top of your head like that you still talk to like from childhood?
Yeah, well, not from childhood. Right now, I would say my best friend I met in graduate school about 10 years ago. Yeah, yeah. And but my childhood best friend, unfortunately, I lost about
Okay.
7 years ago because he had a more serious form of muscular dystrophy,
Yeah.
and he passed away when we were both 29. So
Wow. I'm
yeah.
sorry to hear that.
It's a reality of life, and but we were dear friends then, and he's still in my heart. So yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let me take it back to childhood. So, um, how was childhood growing up in a wheelchair? Can you give me a little bit of background on your childhood?
yeah, absolutely. That in childhood with a disability in my life, had its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I was much smaller, and I could easily be thrown around by my
Mm-hmm.
siblings or my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and so that that capability was definitely made life a bit easier. But going through I'd say the toughest part about being disabled when I was a kid was education.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the main education stream uh, with able-bodied kids and the like, and uh, a lot of it was for the majority of it. It was a great experience. I would not want to have had it any other way, but uh, just the education school boards aren't quite adaptive to people with physical disabilities. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, I found like um, gym class was a definite barrier, and oftentimes my schools would just give me a free class over gym class. That
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do many of the events that they were participating in or learning. But then again, I would always get pulled into the health side of gym class. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's funny because I remember, you know, there's an easy A that I don't really have to do anything at all. I pretty much sat there doing gym class. I think there were sometimes it depended on the activity, um, but most majority of the time I could just sit there and chill and I'll probably do something. I didn't really like school anyway, so I could probably use that time to catch up on other homework. But I didn't like school, so I didn't do
Yeah, yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, it's something about school that really got to me because I ended up continuing on in university. I think university was the where I really found my stride
Hmm.
in education because I attended a very accessible university
Okay.
with like an under because it has in the winter in Canada, there's a lot of snow here.
Hmm.
But the university that's in my my the city that I live in actually and attended, it had an underground tunnel system that
Oh.
attached all of the buildings together. So I could be in university, I could like go to class in January and see people that are living on campus, and they'd be in shorts and a t-shirt because they don't go outside for months on end.
Hmm.
And actually, when I was in graduate school, I lived on campus because they had a attendant services program. So the school would hire fellow students, and
Hmm.
they would work as attendants. So they would help you get up in the morning, get showered, get dressed, and they would help you do everything or anything and everything that any other university student would, including get prepared to have safe sex. And but ironically, though, they were not allowed to help you with alcohol.
Okay.
And it was so funny because I was in my late 20s and early 30s when
Okay.
I was in graduate school, and I was older than all of my attendants. So, I know how much I need to drink or
Hmm.
can drink, and but I should not get past that barrier. But thankfully, I had other friends that
Yes, sir.
that I could still go to the bar with and things like that. Yeah.
So, how was that experience living on campus, or not? I guess that you were living at home with your parents. So, how was that experience? Having a college life and things like that. Because I know I went to school here in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I went to Lee University, and I came to school here kind of late at 23, so I was already living on my own at 19. So I had already lived that adult life. I kind of wanted the college life, so like how was that college? How was that transition of like having
Uh,
college?
well, I think my undergrad degree, I was still living at home, and so there was a lot of back and forth, and uh, I did a lot of. I found my most independent aid or experiences stemmed from that period in time,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was in my older years in my undergrad, I had a lot of self confidence, and I could, I could get through my days more on my own in my
Mm-hmm.
undergrad degree, whereas uh, in my in my later undergrad degree and graduate degree. But then when I was in my early years, still, I was uh, very dependent on others, on my attendants or my family to help me get through, uh, you know, basic tasks of the day. Whereas in my late 20s and early 30s, that's when I truly found um, my most independent my abilities to be independent and live in the way that I wanted to live and could live.
I definitely agree with that. That's what I tell people. Like my independency is very important to me. That's my happiness. That's my survival. And one day, you know, I hope that I never have my independency taken away from me.
Hmm.
But um, I'm very confident, and that's another question I'm gonna lead up to is. But yeah, just to go back to that, like I enjoy my independency. I enjoy living on my own. I enjoy um, all of what comes with that. So that's very important for me. That's my happiness. But you talked about being confident. Like what brought that confidence on? Because I don't think early on I didn't really have that confidence in myself.
Well, I think what brought that confidence on was just experience.
Hmm.
And I was, you know, in my high school years, I was very timid and
Hmm.
I did not socialize much at all in high school, except with like fellow disabled friends of mine
Hmm.
and also but also my attendants that I had at home that I hired and trained and took care of me. And they were often younger university students taking care of me. So I was always more comfortable with adults than I
Hmm.
was with people in my own age when I was in high school. Um, and maybe it's just because I felt more mature, but less physically able. I don't know. And then as I entered uh, university, I found that there's a lot less ableism in when I was in university,
Hmm.
and people were adults that I was hanging around with, or young adults in their early 20s, late teens, and they would suddenly treat me as the person I am inside rather than uh, the person that they are seeing.
Yes, I can agree with that. I think it's a way to the maturity um, and how people see us with disabilities from like high school. I always say like middle school and high school. Like I didn't really care for a lot of my middle school and high school days, but in my adult life, that's where I started to really, you know, gain that confidence and gain my and to see who I really was and how I identified who I was. Like I didn't have an identity in those days because I was still looking, but now I got that. So it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
and I did care what people thought about me back in the day, as opposed to now I don't really care. So it's like I'm gonna do what I want to do, what makes me happy now. So a lot of that is probably just thinking what people thought about me,
I
good or
think
bad.
that I think that's exactly it, Lucas. I also I think I was also very much in my head
Mm-hmm.
about being somebody that other people wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, whereas when I became a young, in university and I became more of an adult, I knew that I was just me and I was comfortable with that. And, now I'm still me and still at the same level of independence, but I am living in a hospital now because of the seriousness of my physical disability. But
Okay.
um, I am more independent than the average person that lives here, and that the uh, you know hospital is used to having living
Mm-hmm.
here. So, and they have been very adaptive to me and my needs. So, like, usually someone who is on a ventilator, they don't let leave the unit, whereas, especially on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, in the summertime, I'm fully able still to go out on my own and do things on my own. But, and so they have agreed to let me do those things and not follow other rules that they always adhere to.
I got you. And like you said, that goes back to you being independent and having that time, because that mindset is important, and that keeps you in a better mood and it keeps you in a happier mood. But can we talk a little bit more about the you living in the hospital? Like, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, well, in 2021,
Mm-hmm.
I had a medical crisis
Mm-hmm.
where my disability progressed to the point where I couldn't exhale all of the CO2 that my body was producing.
Oh, wow.
So I became kind of hazy and unresponsive. Um, and so my mom and sister brought me to um, the the emergency room, and I was intubated, and uh, I stayed in the ICU for 3 months, and then I stabilized and moved into the regular hospital, and then, uh, you know, figured out what the next steps were, and um, the next steps were that I could not my disability had progressed to a point where I couldn't live in an area that did not have, fully, where I was not cared for by
Mm-hmm.
highly trained nurses that knew how to use my ventilator or and things like that. So then I was moved into a long-term complex medical care unit in a rehab hospital. And, at first it was really hard, but now that I've been here for 3 years, everybody knows me. I am comfortable with my environment. I'm comfortable with my disability, and I'm still being me. And I still have, I was able to start a podcast of my own, and
Cool.
I still do some public speaking events.
Mm.
to talk about my disability. And I also have a part-time research position at the university that I used to go to. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm hearing good news and things like that. And I'm going to talk. You said some things that I want to touch on. Um, I see you thriving and doing great and not letting anything hold you back.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that because I'm like that too. But can we take a moment and talk about some of those days you just feel discouraged and how do you process things then to try to get back to feeling good? Or like, I want to know about the bad days as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think you just said a word, Lucas, that I have used all of my life to inspire me to continue to get back to where I know I can be. And that word is thrive. And I've actually got a tattoo on my arm that says
Oh,
thrive.
wow.
And I've used that word throughout my life because when I was diagnosed at 6 months, uh, the doctor told my parents that I would have an inability to thrive. And uh, that was, in the 1980s when they really knew very little about muscular dystrophy and even less about my type of muscular dystrophy. Um, and you know, uh, there, as you say, there are always bad days. Where suddenly find myself in the hospital. I have had about, I think, 3 different times in my life where I was, where I woke up and I was in an emergency room, surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
family and and they were terrified that I would not wake up. And those times where I had as a young child, well, as a early teenager after a major surgery, I was prescribed too much painkillers for
Mm-hmm.
my body mass, and I ended up going into a coma.
Wow.
Um, and that was just because I had too much Tylenol in my bloodstream. Uh,
Wow.
and uh, and then the next time was from my first seizure as a kid. Um, and I woke up and I had a seizure in my sleep. And you know, in I thought I was dreaming that I was in an ambulance, and so I was swatting away the oxygen mask
Mm-hmm.
and in my dream, but I woke up and I was told that that was actually a reality, that I was in the ambulance and they had to get you know, an ambulance worker or an EMT to like do nothing but hold the oxygen mask on my face,
Mm-hmm.
constantly moving around. And then the third time was in 2021 when I woke up and I had a tube down my throat, and um, I think uh, I each time I woke up and I was terrified, but I was surrounded by people that loved me,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I found strength in that support, and I am very fortunate that was born into a very supportive family, and you know, I've got an older brother who doesn't like me, you know, who hates it so much when I try that he let me punch him in the face so that his nose would bleed to make me smile. And you know, but then my sister, and then I've got an older sister also, and she is always, um, as soon as I am in any kind of difficult position, she is always right by my side, holding my hand, and uh, and then I got my mom and my dad, and he and my mom. You know, my dad lives further away, but I still talk to him on a regular basis, and he is so supportive for me. And then, but you know, I would not be here. I would not have been anywhere had it not been for my mom. And um, my mom does dedicates her life to my success and my thriving. And she drove me to, you know, university classes. She's, you know, when I was very young, she gave up her business to take care of me. Um, and uh, she still to this day, you know, I'm in the hospital. I'm surrounded by, you know, nurses that can assist me with anything. But you know, if I'm even feeling a bit anxious, my mom comes over and gives me a hug and watches TV with me. And um, uh, you know, I you know, I can message her just like I messaged her earlier today, and I sort of said, "Hey, what are you up to today?" And she said, "Oh, you know, just hanging out, doing some reading, but my plans could change. What's up?" Like as if like if I need her, she is there at the drop of a hat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely like that. It's very important to have a strong community for anybody, for disabled, able-bodied people. Like that's a universal thing. Like it's so very important for us to have a strong community around us. I think when I started to see myself different or to do better, my mindset my mindset changed. It was because of community that was around me. That wanted me to do better, that spoke life into me and things like that, and just care about you in ways that other people can't. So I'm big on community, and my immediate family loves me too. Like I have that support from my family. Fortunately, I live in Tennessee, and my rest of my family lives up north.
Mm.
Um, so my friends and things, they become my family, and they look out for me and things like that. So um, I agree with you. Family is very important, and you're very blessed to have a family that cares about you like they do. Like that a
Yeah.
lot.
And like you said, friends can become
Mm-hmm.
family also.
Mm-hmm.
Like my best friend that I met in graduate school when I was in the ICU in
Mm-hmm.
2021, he was by my side every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, you know, he and I play a board game every day.
Wow.
And uh, it is better for it helps me mentally and it helps him
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and neither one of us are uh you know um in neither one of us are fully happy unless we are seeing each other or talking to each other on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis. And he still comes in to do my laundry once a
Oh
week.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh, Yeah. So, and I love him like a family member. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad you have that. So you mentioned having a podcast, or start a podcast and doing some public speaking. Let's talk about that. How did you get into doing public speaking?
Um. Well, I got into public speaking, um, really through school, because I found that I was, uh, when people are, you would give presentations in elementary and high school classes. I found that I really loved giving presentations,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I was very I did very well in it, and I think people, when they see me physically, they don't expect that.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I was able to succeed uh very early on. And then that when I got into university, I could still do very well in that at that higher level. Um, and then during my after my master's degree, I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to guest lecture in a couple classes,
Okay.
and I love that so much. Uh, and I've been able to speak uh, most recently um, at a professional development day for a respite care facility that I used to go to as a kid and a
Okay.
young adult. And so I would talk to the staff there and tell them how beneficial they are to their clients, and how the person I am today is in part thanks to the work that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered my true self thanks to living or staying in that facility as a
Mm-hmm.
young kid. And I remember my first day there, for instance, I cried when my mom dropped me off because I had never stayed anywhere else
Mm-hmm.
that she was not there.
Mm-hmm.
But then when she picked me up on Monday, I tried again because I didn't want to leave.
Yeah. I
And
think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, no, and so I and my podcast also has gotten me into public speaking, and um I really use that as an outlet um now, because I did want to aspire to be a professor. That was my
Okay.
main dream.
Okay.
But because of my disability, I couldn't get to that high of a level, and also those jobs are impossible to get because of tenureships and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I still am able to um, achieve that through other means. Yeah,
That. Yeah. Achieving through other means. Just keep thriving, right? When things happen.
exactly.
How,
And again though, getting back to that thriving on bad days,
yeah.
um, achieving things in other ways is really how I maintain the ability to thrive and
Mm-hmm.
get over those humps. Um, and I was able to, find my new normal in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
A new normal.
exactly.
I
A new
like that.
normal. Yeah.
To to adapt to what's going on, and I think that's a special ability right there. Not a lot of people have that ability to adapt. And even me in certain situations. When it comes out of my wheelchair, I guess I can adapt to a lot of things. Sometimes in my personal life, I'm like, oh, I don't want to change. I don't like change on certain things. So I know for me, like, I'm not a control freak, but I think because I'm in a wheelchair and I'm a person, like, I have tattoos. And I have a lot of tattoos because in my life, that's one thing that I can control. There's a lot of things in my life that I couldn't do or had the ability to say, I want to do this or I don't want to do this. But like I have my ears pierced, I have tattoos and things like that because I was able to say, yeah, I'm going to do that because I can do that. That's something I can control. How do you have any control issues like with that, with certain things with things that you can control? I don't know. I don't know if I'm asking this question right, but like, do you have control issues? I'm gonna just say that you have control issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that has disability has some sort of control issues, and learning to find my new normal when living in a hospital. I had a lot of control issues because you know, when I moved here, you know, a lot of people wanted me to adapt to the way that regular patients live here, but that is not a thing that I do, and so I pushed in some ways, I pushed back in some ways, but then in other ways that I sort of felt that I could adapt to their style, I did.
Okay.
So I adapted in certain ways, but then in other ways I pushed. And yeah, that was
And I like giving pushback because it's not even just about you. It's for the next person that comes in that has a mindset like you. You're doing it for them. You're doing it for the people after you because they went in a mindset where I want to be independent. I want to do these things. And now that, you're pioneer. I don't want to say pioneer, but I'm going to say pioneer. You've been a pioneer for people after you to come in to have an experience where they could be independent themselves. And the people that work there and say, well, we've been through this. We know how to handle this. Sure, there's going to be compromise, but sometimes you say, look, a lot of our mental health comes from being independent.
yeah, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And like my doctor, for instance, asked me a couple of years ago when I first lived here. He's like, "Were you used to more independence than you're getting here?" And I said, "Yeah, I was." And so we looked at how I could live my life here, and he sort of said, "Okay, well, let's get you to, sign a waiver form that if you are outdoors on your own and are not in the hospital and happen to, die because of your ventilator failing and you're not with somebody that is trained on how to do that, then you can't sue us." And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I really don't care. I'd rather have the independence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely understand it. I'm glad that you have that independence and everything like that. By the way, what muscle dystrophy do you have? I know I have a congenital myasthenia gravis. What is yours?
Yeah, mine is congenital also.
Okay.
Um, however, they were never really able to diagnose me to a specific type
Oh,
of
okay,
congenital.
okay.
So I was born, and they sort of said, okay, well, he has some type of muscular dystrophy. So congenital is just that big umbrella of
Yeah,
like you have muscular dystrophy, but we have no idea what type.
yeah.
Um, and uh, you know, I've had certain symptoms that my doctors have told me, uh, we've never seen that before
Hmm.
in muscular dystrophy or congenital muscular dystrophy. So maybe you have your own type, or yeah.
Wow, that's yeah, that's crazy.
But
I
I
know.
haven't I haven't really pursued further genetic testing though. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, with the myasthenia gravis, I've met people. It's funny that they end up walking, but like other situations, like they can't really swallow good. And I don't walk, but I swallow good. So it's like I've never seen somebody like quite like me. But
Yeah,
mm,
I also have swallowing issues.
mm,
Before I had my vent, uh, I was eating orally, and I was eating pureed foods.
mm,
So I had um, I had a number of uh, swallowing tests done after a major back surgery, and when my major back surgery fixed my back, but it messed up my swallowing technique, and so I
mm,
was constantly choking on food.
wow.
Um, and so they ended up, um, doing tests, and they found that I could successfully eat foods that were sort of like a thick pudding consistency.
Hmm.
And so my family would just, whatever they were eating, they just put into a food processor and made it that thickness. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So you said major back surgery was that like a spinal fusion or something?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I had that surgery when I was 14, 15 years old.
yeah, exactly. I think it is pretty much the most common back surgery for people that have muscular dystrophy. Because
Hmm.
when your spine starts growing when you hit puberty,
Hmm.
uh, your muscles can't support the weight,
Hmm.
right? And so when I was a young teen, I had scoliosis, and
Yeah,
I had a 30-degree bend in my spine before the back surgery.
yeah. I think it's funny. 30. My own. I want to say 30, but I think it was 45. It was really bad because they found it and like really had to go in there and like do surgery right away. Like
Oh yeah,
it was like a month or two after that they saw it. Like it just kind of happened out the blue and was just there. So yeah, that was definitely no fun. That was having that surgery because I lost a lot of independency because of that surgery. So doing that surgery, it was a lot of my mental. Even being at 14, 15 years old, I was just starting high school and having to have that surgery. It was no fun. So
yeah. Well, and you know, when you're away for long periods of time, as a young kid, in high school and things like that, uh, I I feel like um, other kids are a bit not judgmental, but they're very uncomfortable with
mhm,
talking about medical issues. and because they don't understand it, and it's not their fault. It's just that they haven't been introduced to these types of issues at their young of an age, and
Yes.
I think that's also why I felt more comfortable socially with adults when
Hmm.
I was that age, because I was dealing with adult issues,
Hmm.
but when I was, in high school, I was surrounded by people that didn't understand all those things and didn't talk about those things. They were talking about, how bad a smelly fart was, or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I definitely understand that. It's been cool talking to you today too. So it's just like getting to see your experiences and seeing things that we both certain things that we both went through. Um, and it's been very fun talking to you today. Um, is so before we leave, I just want to say, I appreciate you being on the podcast. And can you tell me what your podcast name is so I can?
Yeah. My podcast is called 21st Century Disability.
Mhm.
And it's basically the reason why I titled it that is it's about what it's like to have a disability in the modern world, and
Okay.
how the modern world is changing the way society sees disability, because we have access to technologies like power chairs or standing frames,
Hmm.
or robotics that can help you walk.
Yeah.
And these technologies are helping you get over barriers in your environment that are eliminating your disability and making your disability less apparent. And so
Yes.
that is really the social perspective of disability, in that, instead of the medical perspective of disability. So the social perspective is more your surrounding environment
Hmm.
is causing your disability. It's not a problem in you are not the problem.
Hmm.
Your surroundings is making you disabled. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I definitely 100% agree with that. And I want to tune in and I'm going to look it up and start listening to your podcast. I think it's an interesting topic, something that I can relate to. And so I look forward to listening to your podcast. Like I said, I appreciate you. I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing some of your experiences. And before we go, is there anything that you want to say? One last thought?
Well, I just want to thank you very much, Lucas, for having me on your podcast. And I think you're having wonderful conversations on your podcast, and by having conversations like this, it's bringing more awareness and spreading conversation, and that's a powerful thing. So keep doing it.
Hey, man, I definitely appreciate the encouragement. And that's what I'm trying to do, just spread the awareness and um, do something good in the world. So,
Exactly.